It's showtime.
It's the pre-party with J. Cal.
We are professional wrestling.
I'm building an alliance.
You are tuned into
the absolute top of the mountain, the ultimate professional wrestling.
Alliance-wrestling.com.
Hey, it's the pre-party with your boy J-Cal. This is a presentation of Alliance-wrestling.com, your number one source for news and information for the National Wrestling Alliance and the United Wrestling Network. Week in, week out, every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific, we're here to talk NWA with you, the hashtag NWA fam, just ahead of Prime Time Live. That's 90 minutes of pay-per-view for all you fans who are new to the show. First and foremost, I want to thank everyone for tuning in this week. Again, this is a presentation of Alliance-Wrestling.com. And what we do here on the show is we talk about the NWA, we talk about the United Wrestling Network, and really happy that you guys join us week in and week out again to talk about this stuff. We've always been about creating a community for fans who enjoy studio-style wrestling, if you will, who enjoy the NWA Power, or before that, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And believe it or not, we've been doing this podcast, this style of podcast, for nearly a year now. For nearly a year, we've been talking about what was coming up for the NWA with NWA Power, what was on the docket for Nick Aldis, or then Women's World Champion Allison Kay, what was going to happen with Villains Enterprise, or the Tag Team Champions, the Wild Card. And here it is. We're here week in, week out to provide you with a little bit of information, a little bit of background. Now we're focusing kind of on the Prime Time Live, be the only vehicle that you have to get fresh NWA matches. And it's kind of interesting because this might be the last week we get fresh NWA World Title matches for a while, because this is the last championship match that's been booked for now for Primetime Live. We're not seeing any more matches lined up for Thunder Rosa here at Thunder Studios. We don't see any matches for Nick Aldis, or for Trevor Murdoch, or for Elijah Burke, or for Storm and for Drake. In fact, let's talk about James Storm for a minute. The NWA Tag Team Champion James Storm, who was reportedly without a contract dating back to the end of January, around the NWA Hard Times. It was expected that James Storm and Eli Drake would be competing at the Crockett Cup, perhaps defending their tag team titles, but of course, all that came to a halt. All that came to a stop with the pandemic pause of COVID-19, and that match never happened. There's been no NWA tag team title match. You don't hear the NWA even reference the tag team titles at this point. You really don't hear much from the NWA at all, except for that we're going to see a return. We're going to see NWA Power return. We're going to see more from NWA Power, but even that hasn't happened yet. And this show isn't supposed to be all about bad-mouthing the NWA, because in general, the NWA is my favorite wrestling promotion. The NWA is my bread and butter. I've been covering the NWA for going on 14 years. And I want to see the NWA thrive. I want to see the NWA succeed. I want to see the NWA do something. But so far, we haven't seen a whole lot, have we? We haven't. Before I get too far into all of my tirade today and my diatribes about the National Wrestling Alliance, I do want to wish Miss Piper Stinson a happy 11th birthday. Not only is Piper Stinson the daughter of Dr. Rob from This Is the NWA podcast, but Piper Stinson is a contributor to the hashtag NWA fam. That's right, because Piper has Piper's Notes on the This Is the NWA podcast, a show that I was a part of. The 11-year-old Miss Piper Stinson, I hope that you continue to capture the world by its chutzpah and continue to celebrate all the love and respect that your family gives and shares. And I hope it's a great birthday for you. I know 11 years old is a fun time, and that kid's got a good head on her shoulders and a good mom and dad. So I'm sure that she'll continue to have many, many good years. So we got Woodland Goblin in the house. Lamb is here. DKM is here. If you guys are here, if you're watching, whether it be on Twitch, Facebook, or YouTube, just give me a comment. Let me know that you're watching. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribed. It really helps us with the algorithm. But let's talk a little bit more about these NWA champions, right? We have, at least we know for a fact, that Nick Aldis is still our world's heavyweight champion. We know this because last he defended the title on September the 15th at Primetime Live against Mike Bennett. And he is next scheduled for his next title defense on December 10th. September, October, November, December. 3 months. It'll be 3 months since our world's heavyweight champion, the real world's champion, has defended his championship title. 3 months. Does that bother anyone else? Because it doesn't sit well with me. Now, again, I'm not a matchmaker, and under no certain terms would I ask a talent to put himself in a risky situation. But Nick Aldis, you cannot claim to be the world's champion if you're not defending that title. We went through about 9 months of inactivity from that title. Okay, not 9 months. That's obviously an exaggeration. The last time that title was defended was back in January, towards the end of January. So February, nothing. March, nothing. April, May, June, July, nothing. One title match, August, I believe it was the 25th at the North Richland Hills, Texas Independent Wrestling Expo. He defended that title against Nobi Bryant in what was said to be a really good match. 1 month later, not even a whole month, like 2 weeks, comes to Primetime Live, defends the World's Heavyweight Championship against a more than worthy opponent, Mike Bennett. Great match. I was there to see it live. And now we're sitting in a world of inactivity. I don't know if this will get back to Nick Aldis, because I do have all the respect in the world for our world's heavyweight champion. But I feel like Thunder Rosa is out there hustling, defending that title all across the country. There are avenues for our world's heavyweight champion to showcase. There are avenues for Nick Aldis to defend the 10 pounds of gold. The biggest opponent the NWA faces is empathy, or a lack of empathy. Nobody cares about mediocrity. Nobody cares about the reasons why you're not. They only care about the reasons why you are. The World's Heavyweight Championship, a title that I've bear witness to more than a dozen live matches. More than a dozen times have I seen that title defended. I flew all the way to China to see that title be defended. I flew all the way to North Carolina, to Atlanta, Georgia, to Nashville, Tennessee. I've seen that belt defended in Las Vegas, Nevada. I've seen that title defended in Yuma, Arizona, and all over Southern California. And I do understand a pandemic pause. I do understand that we have to be smart about where our talent, where wrestlers wrestle. But Nick, what's going on? I get that a return of NWA Power is paramount in your picture, but apathy, will drive the audience away. There's nothing to be excited about with the 10 pounds of gold. Flying Brian Jr., I think that'll be a great match, but as far as I can tell, it's not going to be televised. It's not going to be on pay-per-view, and it's 2 months away. I'm not alone here, am I? Am I the only one that feels this way? I mean, I look at some of your comments. Lamb says his title match against Mike Bennett was his last defense. Wow. Yes, that was his last defense. I'm looking at Woodland Goblin says, I brought this same thing up on the Sunday night during the NWA podcast, and the Bearded Trio gave him a free pass and made excuses for him. And look, I give everyone a pass for what happened between February, right, and September, because it's still not technically safe to be having live wrestling events. It's still a little bit on the, I don't know, risky side. But you can't tell me that it's okay to defend the title on December 10th in Grimsley, Tennessee, and it's not okay to maybe defend the title, I don't know, Primetime Live, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, New Japan Strong. Okay, let's say not on the West Coast. What about SWE in Texas? What about the School of Morton? Maybe these places are beneath our world's heavyweight champion, but the stagnation of the 10 pounds of gold will be the demise of the 10 pounds of gold. It's up to the world champion to get out there and defend that title. And you can't tell me that, it's too dangerous when Thunder Rosa is doing it. I see from my notes I'm not alone. Woodland Goblin also adds that he means look at Thunder Rosa. She's going out of her way to defend her women's belt since September. DCam agrees with me. Jason Newsom agrees with me. Woodland Goblin agrees. February to September, you get a pass. Dave Scooby says if any NWA champion is willing and able to defend, just let them do it and keep the NWA name active and on people's minds. And this is, Woodland Goblin says he is like Mr. Social Distancing. There's a place to do this. Look, if you want to talk about safety, nobody in Primetime Live has been diagnosed with COVID-19. I've been there. I've seen the operation. They check you in. You have to do the forehead scan. Everyone needs to show up with a negative COVID test. You can defend the title in Long Beach. You can defend the title in Primetime Live. You know, Mission Pro. I know that's a women's wrestling promotion, but I bet you that they would have no problem welcoming Nick Aldis onto that card. Maybe they wouldn't. I don't know. That's just me guessing. But again, places like the School of Morton, right? Places like I don't know, Game Changer Wrestling. I mean, I'm sure I can Google a list of events that happened in the last 2 weeks where American wrestling took place. I know there was a ballpark show on the East Coast, IWA East. Besides the point, it doesn't matter where. It just matters that the title is being defended, and it's not. And I think that is the biggest problem with the NWA today. Because to hell with NWA Power. The NWA survived for years without its own show, without its own home. You know, during the Bruce Tharp era, there was no exclusive home for the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. The NWA World's Heavyweight Championship found a home. It would go places. It would go to New Japan Pro Wrestling. It would wrestle in Smoky Mountain. It would wrestle in these NWA affiliated promotions with or without TV. And I get it. Like I said, the pandemic pause, COVID-19, these are all scary things. And I understand if you don't want to go out there and defend that title, if you don't want to be on the road, I get it. But maybe it's time to drop that title if you're unwilling to get out there and work. Now, if I'm wrong, if I'm wrong, Nick Aldis, if you're hearing this, if I'm wrong, someone please correct me. But it just feels like there's apathy towards the promotion. There's apathy towards the fan base. And if this is where me and my brothers over at This Is the NWA podcast disagree, then so be it. But this, to me, I don't know. It doesn't sit well with me. Doesn't sit well with me. Okay. So I had to get that off my chest. Speaking of Thunder Rosa, okay, well, Thunder Rosa is the women's champion who seems to be doing everything right. And by stark contrast, Thunder Rosa carrying the Burke is seemingly doing everything that I would want our world's heavyweight champion to do. Now, keep in mind, I don't know if there's any talks between AEW and Nick Aldis. I don't know if that's even a position of something that could happen. But, she's wrestled 6 matches this year defending that title, and that's with the pandemic pause. And she's wrestled, she's had 6 defenses, and each time she's walked away with the title. She went to a no contest with Miranda Gordy. She defeated Priscilla Kelly. She defeated Lindsay Snow. She defeated Invalise. She defeated Allison Kay. She defeated Melina. She hasn't been afraid to get out there and wrestle. And even when she wasn't defending the title, she still appeared in different promotions, representing the NWA, holding the Burke, whether it be SWE in Texas or whether it be the Warriors Wrestling in Illinois. She's been there with the Burke, representing the NWA. Tonight, she represents the NWA at Prime Time Live. Now, I'm excited about this week's episode of Prime Time Live, and we'll be doing a lot more talking about that. Of course, Prime Time Live has become my favorite wrestling show, period. And we talk about this at length on Thursdays with DKM, who is in the chat room, as well with Kevin Douglas. We talk about the pros and cons of Primetime Live. I see it from a little bit more rose-tinted glasses. I see what they're efforting to do. Kevin, who is a former NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion, sees it as it is. And I believe that DKM sees it as the way he thinks it should be. So we all look at this from a little bit slightly different perspective. And I'll be honest, a lot of times my two co-hosts disagree with me with the quality of matches, the quality of the opponents. But 100% we all give our uncensored, our genuine perspective of the show. I'll never tell you something that I don't 100% believe. But I do believe that Primetime Live is the best night of wrestling for me. Hopefully for you too. And for this week's show, I really am excited about some of these matches, and some of them I'm not so excited about. And like I said, I will always be honest with you guys. I will always give you the 411 when it comes to what I think. And I'm just seeing the comments here where Mr. DCam says he's always right. And then we'll get to that. We'll get to all that good stuff. But first things first. This is the match that'll probably kick off the night. We see a return of tag team wrestling to Primetime Live. We've got the Bodega, to me, one of the hottest tag teams in all of Primetime Live. You got Danny Limelight. You've got Pablo Esco. And, hey, Pablo, you hungry? He's starving. And they're taking on Real Money Brothers. Now, this is going to be do or die for Real Money Brothers because, as much as I like to see new blood, I like to see good wrestling. Real Money Brothers had a match with Friendship Farm where they got toasted. I mean, Friendship Farm got toasted. Real Money Brothers looked very good in that match, but it was still just an okay match. Their second match on Primetime Live was against SoCal Distancing, the United Wrestling Network World Tag Team Champions. And I didn't hate the match, but again, they were defeated. So now the record's 1-1. And if they come in tonight and they underestimate the Bodega, I don't know you're going to see Clutch and Suge Brown back in Primetime Live. Because if you start looking at the list of tag team wrestlers that are associated with the United Wrestling Network, and I'm talking about the Tribe, I'm talking about the Wolf Zaddies, I think there's a lot of potential, and I don't know where these guys continue to fit in. I mean, 4 Minutes of Heat. What was it? Meat Stick. What was the tag team from a couple weeks ago? It just seems like if they don't do something tonight, they might not ever do something. And I do want to see good tag teams. Now, I think this match, La Bodega, Real Money Brothers, I think you're going to see a more a mix of style because, again, the big man, one-man lucha gang, Pablo Esco, will kind of fit in well against these two. And, of course, Danny Limelight has been so good. He's been able to adapt so well in the ring. And it's kind of funny because Danny Limelight, who's pulling double duty tonight, if folks are watching AEW Dark, you're going to see Danny Limelight make his debut there. But then he's also wrestling tonight. He's also made his debut for New Japan Strong this year. He made his pay-per-view debut with Primetime Live. He made his debut with Game Changer Wrestling when they came out to Southern California. And in a year where everyone is, paused because of the world of wrestling has been impacted so greatly by COVID-19, a guy like Danny Limelight is having maybe the best year of his career. And that's saying that he's lost pretty much every match he's had on Primetime Live, but he's constantly being used. He had the match with Clark Connors. He lost. He had the match against Kevin Martinson. He lost. He had the tag team match with La Bodega. They lost. But what I'm saying, though, is that they keep using the guy because he's great. Not because he's good, but because he's great. And I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen tonight with La Bodega. And I keep saying La Bodega. It's the Bodega. I shouldn't be throwing a law in front of that. The Bodega. But I'm excited to see the Bodega. Can I say it 4 more times? Bodega, 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 Bodega. I'm excited to see the Bodega take on Cash Money Brothers. Real Money Brothers, excuse me. But this is probably going to be a make or break match for both teams, really. And we'll see what happens. I imagine if the Bodega wins, that they're putting themselves in line for an opportunity to face SoCal distancing. Some more of your comments. Would love to see Allison Kay show up tonight and confront both Thunder Rosa and Serena Deeb to keep a storyline going, as she has passed with both. And then Terry McDermott says a match with the Friendship Farm should count. You're not wrong. Another match that I'm really strongly looking forward to, and I think is going to maybe be the match that's going to steal the show, is this one right here. Ray Rosas defending the Hollywood Heritage Championship against Kevin Martinson. Big Hunky Kev, BHK. Now this match, these are two of the most celebrated talents of all of the United Wrestling Network. Ray Rosas has been a former United Wrestling Network TV champion. He's a former Hollywood Heritage Tag Team champion. He's currently in possession of the PP3 Cup, which gives him the Pringle privilege. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. But he's also the Hollywood Heritage champion, which he's defending tonight. And he's the Arizona State champion. He has all the accolades. The only thing he's short of is being the United Wrestling Network Tag Team Champion. In fact, he kind of coached Andy Brown and Adrian Quest to get those titles. They were part of a stable called the Static until Brown and Quest turned their back on Rosas, actually attacked him. So Ray Rosas, who's finally making his debut on Primetime Live, finally making his debut after wrestling in AEW, he's defending the Heritage Championship against one of the best unsigned free agents in all of wrestling, Kevin Martinson. Martinson is a guy who you know, a lot of people think of him as a tag team specialist because of his time in the Rockness Monsters. He and Johnny Yuma competed all across Southern California, but really all across the world, defending the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood Heritage Tag Team titles of Mexico, competing in DDT in Japan and Osaka Pro Wrestling in Japan. They were one of the few Americans that traveled to China to wrestle for Middle Kingdom Wrestling, and have held them tag team titles multiple times, not only in the United Wrestling Network, but also in promotions outside of United Wrestling Network, and I'm talking about Southern California Wrestling. The duo are phenomenal. You've seen Johnny Goodtime, that's what they used to be known as, Johnny Goodtime. Kevin Martinson, he's had appearances in the WWE. He's had appearances in Ring of Honor. He even had a match in Impact. But by far and away, this has kind of been a very interesting time to see what Kevin Martinson's doing, because now he's not saddled with a tag team partner. And as good as the Rockness Monsters were, let's be honest, Kevin Martinson is great. Kevin Martinson is greatness. Kevin Martinson is a guy who should be main eventing Primetime Live. Kevin Martinson is a guy who should be stepping up to the likes of Chris Dickinson or Carl Fredericks, or Eli Drake, or maybe even Nick Aldis. Lamb wants to point out that he was even in Lucha Underground. He was the son of Chaos. So Martinson is double tough. He's already got one victory on Primetime Live. He defeated the aforementioned Danny Limelight. And I'm really expecting big things tonight for Kevin Martinson. In fact, I'm going to go out on a limb and say we're going to have a new champion. I could be wrong. But pulling the string back a little bit, let's talk a little more about Ray Rosas. Again, similar trajectory as Kevin Martinson. In fact, the duo used to feud when Ray Rosas was a part of PP Ray with Pretty Peter Avalon and Kevin Martinson and Rockness Monsters and later Vermin. The four of those guys wrestled all over the country. In fact, when I mentioned the tag team titles being defended in Mexico, it was against PP Ray. And these teams have battled back and forth so many times that Martinson and Rosas know each other probably just as well as they know their old tag team partner. And I really think that this match is going to be solid. Like, the only way this match doesn't steal the show is if Serena Deeb and Thunder Rosa pull out every stop, because I really think with a wrestler like Ray Rosas, who's so versatile and able to do so much in that ring, and a wrestler like Kevin Martinson, where there's almost no wasted motion, I think the match in the ring is going to be stellar. And with the Percy Pringle III Cup, Rosas has an opportunity to cash that urn in for a shot at any competitor, any champion in the United Wrestling Network. You know, that used to just mean Championship Wrestling from Hollywood and Championship Wrestling from Arizona and maybe the NWA. But now that includes promotions like West Coast Pro Wrestling and future guest of the Alliance guys, Alexander Hammerstone. That includes future stars of wrestling, the Las Vegas Championship, the FSW title. So what are we going to see with Ray Rosas? I don't know. But if Kevin Martinson wins the title tonight, Rosas has an opportunity to either re-challenge for the title, or maybe he just waits. Maybe he just waits for the winner of the United Wrestling Network World Heavyweight title. Excuse me, World title. It's an open weight division. That World Championship. And he cashes in on that first opportunity against whoever wins the tournament. I mean, this is just speculation on my part. I don't have an ear to the locker room. I don't know what the bookers are thinking. But if I were writing this show, I think it practically writes itself. More of your comments. Lamb says Kevin Martinson was also on Lucha. Oh, yeah, okay. Kikuchi. Hey, Kikuchi, welcome to the show. Says, I may order tonight for the women's match alone. I mean, you won't be disappointed, but this match is going to certainly give you something that you weren't expecting. DCAM likes Martinson. Kikuchi says he has the Pringle privilege. I'm not sure what you're going with that, but basically the Pringle privilege was essentially after Percy Pringle passed away. He was a member of the Championship Wrestling from Hollywood family. They created a tournament. The winner of that tournament In fact, they actually had that tournament before he passed away. The first winner was Ryan Taylor. It was set up to try to help get Sean Ricker into that World Heavyweight Championship, Sean Ricker being Eli Drake, to get him into that title picture against Adam Pearce. What it ended up doing was helping launch Ryan Taylor's career for a second time in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. And each time the winner of that, the Pringle Cup, every year that the winner of that's a lot like WWE's Money in the Bank. Whoever holds the urn gets an opportunity to cash it in. We know that Watts cashed his urn in to win the United Wrestling Network World Tag Team titles. So it kind of helps create new storyline, new continuity, new opportunities. But essentially, it's the same thing as the Money in the Bank. Lamb says, if you order today and post the order online to David Marquez, you might get a championship pin. Yeah, Dave Marquez was trying to help stoke some of the fires to get people to watch today's show. If you order today's pay-per-view and show a copy proof that you purchased it, Dave is entering anyone who does that into a contest to win one of the title pins that he has made up. I mean, we have like this one, the Dan Severn version of the NWA World Heavyweight Championship, or the national title that basically looks like the TV title. Oh no, I'm sorry, it is the TV title. I apologize, it is the TV title. So, I mean, that could happen. You could always put that in. Lamb says, technically the PP3 Cup is on hold after being thrown into the ocean, thanks to SoCal distancing. And Lamb is our resident expert on Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, a title that I woefully hand over to Lamb because he is now officially the expert, and that PP3 Cup is somewhere in the Pacific Ocean, thanks to SoCal distancing. So, and then Dave Scooby points out, hey, SoCal distancing could show up tonight and cost Rosas the match. That would not surprise me. Again, we've only got 4 matches listed for tonight's show, so it's very, very easy that another match could be put into place. Another match could be announced before showtime. I mean, we are just about 2.5 hours before Primetime Live goes live, so you don't know for sure what will happen, but it wouldn't surprise me if SoCal distancing's here. It wouldn't even surprise me if Johnny Yuma showed up. So, and that takes us to the World Title Tournament. We get the preliminaries. We get the round 1 tonight, and we get Pretty Peter. Oh man, the camera. I gotta figure out how to fix that. We get Pretty Peter Avalon, or the Librarian Peter Avalon, however you want to call it. He will be there to take on Chris Dickinson. Now, this is very much, to me, a Generation Ace matchup. And you see New Japan do this all the time when they have the new Ace kind of face off against the old Ace. Tanahashi, has had several matches where he's supposed to be passing on the torch, so to speak. And this is kind of like that for me. And I know many people say, well, I mean, Avalon's not that old. But you got to remember, Peter Avalon was on the first episode of Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. He lost, but he wrestled Colt Boom Boom Cabana. And that match was significant because that was the match that Colt Cabana officially announced that he would be challenging Adam Pearce. Hey, Wrestling with MMA is now streaming us. Thank you, Wrestling with MMA. That match was the announcement that Colt Cabana would be challenging Adam Pearce for the World Heavyweight Championship. And along that time, Avalon was a central figure during the show. I mean, he was part of the stable that was called, oh crap, now I just forgot the name of the stable. Oh man, it was Austin Aries, Joey Chaos, Adam Pearce. Oh, it was the Standard. I should have known. The Standard and Peter Avalon. So Peter Avalon, early in his career, was being mentored by Austin Aries, mentored by Joey Chaos, and mentored by NWA World's Heavyweight Champion Scrap Iron Adam Pearce. And of course, that relationship kind of would dematerialize after Adam Pearce would lose the title. But Avalon was still a very central part of the show. Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, he would be start teaming with Ray Rosas. Eventually, they would form PP Ray as they would feud with Ryan Taylor. And it's kind of funny because Ryan Taylor was the babyface and all that. Peter and Ray were the heels, but the force changed, and eventually Ryan Taylor would become the heel, PP Ray would become the faces, and you'd get that Vermin versus PP Ray. Again, this entire time, Peter Avalon has been a part of the show. He would hold the Hollywood Heritage Tag titles. He would eventually win the United Wrestling Network Television Championship, and then the Hollywood Heritage title. So he was the central figure throughout episode 1 of Championship Wrestling from Hollywood until he left, until he got signed with AEW. Somewhat similarly, Chris Dickinson was on episode 1 of Primetime Live. Chris Dickinson has kind of been the central figure of this show. The biggest storyline of him asking for competition, yelling out Billy Corgan, yelling at Dave Marquez, putting down Jordan Cruz, putting down Anthony Idol, even defeating Max Caster. I really felt like Chris Dickinson is set for big things within the United Wrestling Network, and this matchup is really kind of dictating, what's next. And if Chris Dickinson can beat Peter Avalon, which, spoiler alert, I don't think an AEW contracted wrestler is going to go over Chris Dickinson in a world title tournament. Dickinson will be on to the next round where he will probably face Watts or Redbeard. I know it's a spoiler, guys, but let's be honest about it. It doesn't make much sense to have Avalon go over Dickinson. But I could be wrong. You'll have to watch tonight, but come on. Let's be real here. Oh, and I forgot to change the graphic. Why didn't anyone tell me that? Wait, there it is. Wait, there it is. And besides, it's going to be a good match because Peter Avalon's a great wrestler, and I know that might be to the chagrin of Kikuchi, but he's a great wrestler. He's going to put on a good match. And to me, I think Chris Dickinson's probably the brightest spot of this whole show. I mean, let's face it. There's a perennial rocket strapped to his back, just waiting for the right vehicle to launch it. And I think that's what this world title tournament is. Whether Dickinson goes over or not in the finish, the spotlight is on him. The eyeballs are watching. Everybody who tunes into Primetime Live is waiting to see what Chris Dickinson will do next. And I think tonight he advances into the tournament, and we get him set up for either Watts or Redbeard. Simple. Am I missing any of your comments? Actually, yeah, I am. Woodland Goblin says Martinson defeated Max Caster on Championship Wrestling from Hollywood last Saturday. Yes, he did. Could Kevin Martinson become of SoCal distancing? I mean, maybe. So, I mean, SoCal distancing started off with a leader named James Logan, if I'm not mistaken. And Logan was the voice for these two, but has been yet to be seen on Primetime Live. I keep wondering when he's eventually going to show up. Could they corrupt Kevin Martinson? Could they sway him to their side of thinking? Absolutely. And it would, it would certainly benefit Martinson if it gets him the Hollywood Heritage Championship, but I don't know if that's with a plan of SoCal distancing. I don't know if that's the plan of James Logan. Ultimately, at the end of the day, Martinson has been the muscle, has been the brawn for both the Rock Nest Monsters and the Vermin stable, so it wouldn't surprise me for him to be a joiner, but I also would like to see him stand on his own 2 feet. Personally, I think this would be the perfect time for Martinson to shine. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I really think it's going to. I really think him winning the Hollywood Heritage Championship on Primetime Live would set the stage for something much, much bigger for Martinson and Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. So I'm kind of hoping it happens. Kikuchi says he hopes Dickinson permanently shhs Peter Avalon. And I think that'd be, I think that's going to happen. Okay, so next up of the 4 matches that have been announced is the main event, and that's going to pit Serena Deeb versus our world's women's champion, the franchise of the NWA, and I'm talking about Thunder Rosa. The Destruction Tour returns to Long Beach, California, baby. And we get Thunder Rosa defending the Burke against Serena Deeb, in which is some people are considering this a rematch from their AEW matchup a few weeks back, but I beg to differ. I beg to differ for multiple reasons, none of which are because. Let me take a drink real quick. I think number one, the NWA Women's World Championship was not on the line. Serena Deeb was fighting for bragging rights, not a championship. Serena Deeb was fighting for an opportunity, not for the gold. And there's something about being in that world title matchup, that je ne sais quoi, right? The opportunity to become a world champion. If you listen to the promos that they made available on Twitter at the United Wrestling Network, she says that match was a beautiful match except for the ending, when she lost. But the motivation, the desire, let's face it, what the NWA did for Thunder Rosa, the NWA could do for anybody. You have to be willing to work for it. And if Serena Deeb wants to be where Thunder Rosa's at, first step is taking that Burke, that women's championship. I need to get better at my transitions over here, because I am failing to do my transitions properly. There we go. So for Serena Deeb, I mean, it's like, what's the worst that could happen? If she wins, she's the new women's champion. And she gets all the bragging rights and all the praise and all the opportunity that Thunder Rosa has had for the last 9 months. If she loses, she goes back to AEW. No harm, no foul. Terry McDermott says that Thunder Rosa is literally carrying the torch for the NWA, and it's hard to argue that. I mean, I went on my diatribe here earlier about Nick Aldis, but let's face it, I mean, Drake and Storm are technically your NWA Tag Team Champions because no announcement's been made official yet. But we just saw James Storm appear on Impact Wrestling at their last pay-per-view. The likelihood that James Storm returns to the NWA at this point are slim and none. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It just means it's not happening right now. On the multiple times that Eli Drake has been on programming for Primetime Live, they've yet to recognize him as an NWA World Tag Team Champion. When James Storm was on their programming, they did recognize him as a former champion, but said nothing about his current reign. So as far as I'm concerned, the NWA Tag Team titles are just in limbo. Trevor Murdoch won the title back on September the 29th against Aaron Stevens, won the national championship. And there was a big hoo-ha and a big, not a parade, but a big hullabaloo. Jesus. There was a big celebration about Trevor Murdoch becoming champion, but there's been no scheduled title defenses as of yet. And of course, without NWA Power, it doesn't look like there will be any more title matches until NWA Power returns. Likewise, last week we saw the Pope, Elijah Burke, put an end to Zicky Dice and his reign of terror as champion. But again, when are we going to see these titles defended? It doesn't look like, at least, there's only 2 more months towards the end of the year, right? October's done, guys. Next week is November. So we got the month of November and the month of December. I don't see when they're going to announce NWA Power returning in November or December, probably the first of the year, which means these titles are not going to be defended for at least 3 months. So when you talk about the torchbearer, the brand, right? Let's face it, Thunder Rosa is the brand. Like, Nick Aldis doesn't even have the NWA logo on his tights, but Thunder Rosa does. And at this point, there's no one carrying that torch brighter than Thunder Rosa. She's not just stepping into the ring. She's stepping into the ring with quality opponents. And, I would get it if it was just only Mission Pro Wrestling, because that's her promotion. That's her home promotion. She's the owner. So, of course, she's going to book herself on that. Of course, she's going to defend the title on that. But she's defending the title against premier opponents. Lindsay Snow is awesome. Ray Lind is a great competitor. That matchup is going to be good on November 6th. But she's also this is the second appearance on Primetime Live. More so than any NWA champion. Zicky Dice technically had 2 matches, but this is the second title defense for Thunder Rosa. We don't have another World Heavyweight Championship match booked for Primetime Live. We don't have another National Championship match booked for Primetime Live. We don't have a TV title match booked for Primetime Live. But we have Thunder Rosa carrying that banner of the NWA, carrying that on her back. And if she's victorious tonight, of course, next week she goes back to Mission Pro Wrestling, her home, where she defends against Ray Lynn. And if she's successful there on, I believe it's November 21st, she defends against Kenzie Paige Henry. But before she can do any of that, she's got to win tonight. She's got to win that title tonight. Or retain that title, I should say. But, I mean, that's kind of the mentality you have to have, is that each night you're going into that match, you might not walk out as champion. You have to win. Or get counted out. Or go to a time limit draw. But the bottom line is, a victory means you continue. A loss sends you back to the bottom of the line. And Thunder Rosa is a fighter. She's a scrapper. She's hungry. She's not looking to go back to the end of the line. She doesn't want to start over. She wants to carry this dominance. And as someone mentioned here in the chat room earlier, it might have been Terry, it might have been Woodland Goblin, Allison Kay sitting there waiting for her opportunity. And don't be surprised if Allison Kay shows up in Long Beach tonight. I mean, what better way to set up the next title match is if Allison Kay comes out there and puts the boots to Thunder Rosa. I mean, again, there's nothing definitive saying that's going to happen. This is just Jake Howell's forecasting, Jake Howell speculating. There's nothing that would lead me to believe that's going to happen. I mean, but did anyone check Allison Kay's tweets lately? I mean, I haven't, but has anyone seen what she's tweeting about? I mean, just let's see if I twitter.com/Sienna. And what is she tweeting about? Let's see. Savage needs over under on my cat's ending me tonight. Tweeting about Impact. Nothing saying that she's on an airplane flight, so who knows? Who knows? But we don't know what's going to happen. We can only anticipate that Thunder Rosa will be successful tonight. Again, I don't foresee an AEW contracted wrestler taking the title unless that storyline is planning to spill into AEW, which wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing. I do want to mention a couple of things, some programming notes, if you will, because this Wednesday, Meat Mountain, Gary Horn's favorite professional wrestler of all time, Alexander Hammerstone, comes to the Alliance Guys podcast, where he joins DKM, the former World Junior Heavyweight Champion himself, Kevin Frazier, and I, as we discuss not only West Coast Pro Wrestling, but we're also going to talk about MLW. And believe it or not, your boy Jake Howell's even going to talk about PCW Ultra. DM me for details on that. But Hammerstone will join the show, and again, that's going to be live, so you guys could join us for that show. You could be here in the chat room. You can ask us questions that we could ask him, so you can be a part of the show. We'll make sure to credit you while we're talking to him. But this should be a very fun night. If you guys are fans of Hammerstone or just enjoy the Alliance Guide podcast, please make sure that you join us. Wherever you're watching right now, that's where you want to be. Wednesday night, October the 28th. Am I right? Yeah, October the 28th at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. And again, this is going to be a lot of fun because we're going to talk to Hammerstone about his career, about how he got to be where he's at right now, what his take is on Primetime Live, and who he would like to face going forward. We'll talk to him about MLW, what the plans are with that, if he knows anything. And of course, again, taking your questions. So that should be fun. Kikuchi says he really wants to see Thunder Rosa versus Casey Carlisle. I believe there's a promoter in New Jersey who can make that happen. I would recommend reaching out to your local promoters. If you want to see the NWA titles being defended in your home, near your home, you could reach out to your local promoters and ask for these kinds of matches. Whether they happen or not is entirely up to them, but I highly recommend. Casey Carlisle, friend of the show, by the way. We love Casey Carlisle. She's a former NWA Women's World Champion in her own right. She carried that monstrosity that was about 40, 50 pounds of tin and plastic, the old NWA Women's Championship. Nothing like the Burke, but held by some pretty good wrestlers. Casey Carlisle was one of them. Anyway, so we're going to wrap the show up because it is getting close to time. Kikuchi says, do you think Thunder Rosa is pushing to be on Primetime Live? She knows a great outlet to promote herself. I'm not sure who's pushing for what. I don't understand for someone to not want to take an opportunity that's presented to themselves. Primetime Live is seen by a national audience. For all intents and purposes, they've produced the last 4 or 5 NWA championship matches, and no one else is being able to compete with that. There is no NWA Power, so for all intents and purposes, there is no NWA television programming at the moment. Primetime Live is the closest thing to that. I would encourage, if you're a fan of the NWA, you maybe tweet at Billy Corgan, at the NWA, at NWA Maureen, in a very politeful manner, a very respectful manner, and tell them you want to see the world's heavyweight champion on Primetime Live, or that you want to see the women's champion return to Primetime Live. But do so respectfully. If you're going to do it, do so in a fashion that would, keep the NWA family looking good, because we don't want to, first of all, we don't want to burn any bridges, and we don't want to bury anybody, but I really feel like the NWA should take advantage of any opportunity it has to showcase its champions. That's what it's all about. But as we wrap it up again, join us Wednesday for the Alexander Hammerstone interview. And, of course, Thursday, the Alliance Guys podcast will be recapping everything you see tonight on Primetime Live. So the 4 matches and whatever else happens in between. And then you could check me out with Will Martin on Friday on Instagram Live. This is the NWA podcast, as we will tackle some topic, and we'll go from there. Again, if you are using assistants, little digital assistants like the Alexa or Google, you could say, "Hey Google, play the Alliance podcast."
Okay, the Alliance podcast
wait.
on Google Podcasts.
Google, stop.
I'll pick up where you left off.
Google, stop. Google, stop. Sorry, that is, "Hey Google, play the Alliance blog podcast."
Okay, the Alliance blog podcast on Google Podcasts. I'll pick up where you left off.
Yeah, I don't believe that show will be televised. I don't believe it'll be on pay-per-view. I could
Okay,
be
Google,
mistaken.
stop.
I think that's pretty cool. And hopefully I set off your digital assistant while you're watching this. But that's going to do it for us, guys. So again, thank you for tuning in. It's always a blast talking to you guys, the hashtag NWA fam. If you would like to, you can follow us on all social medias at the Alliance blog. That's on Tumblr, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch.tv, and YouTube.com. I'm Jay Cal. We'll be here on Wednesday with Alexander Hammerstone. Until then, get positive, stay positive, and I'll see you at the matches.